Hey, do you want to get smarter? Somewhere out there in the world, people say you've got to slog through 12 years of school, add 4 years of college, then slap on 6 years of grad school to finally be considered smart. But honestly, at the end of that road, all you might become is a homeless person. And no, I'm not kidding. But don't panic. The bright side? When you post on Reddit about how you can't land a job, at least you'll do it in perfect English. So, have you figured it out yet? Getting smart is actually easier than you think. Even if you think your genes didn't exactly bless you with the smart card. Compared to the animal kingdom, you're actually pretty tough. When folks like you and me say we want to be smarter, it's for a lot of reasons. We want to learn useful skills, ideally ones that can make us money. We want to be great at problem solving, hopefully to make some money out of it. And of course, we want better grades, crush the hard subjects, so we can show off to our friends. Lastly, we want to sound smart in conversations, just enough to earn some respect, but not so much that people think we're a bookworm. The problem is, most of the advice you find online sounds so philosophical and vague. Even if it works, you can't really do anything with it. If you search for tips you can try right now, you'll end up with stuff like eat blueberries because they're brain food, drink black coffee to stay alert, exercise, sleep more, take an IQ test, listen to classical music. Sounds fine, right? But eventually, you'll need to actually learn something new. And let's be real, even geniuses back in the day sat at their desks all day, only sleeping 2 to 4 hours each night. So what can you really do to get smarter? Don't think you can just hack your brain with some cheesy tips from a Facebook post copied from an article, inspired by a graffiti quote on a subway wall in New York. Nope, you actually need a real study method. Hey, do you know the most important thing to become smarter? It's reading books. But read what? Well, that's up to you. Fiction books are fantastic for learning how to read faster and boosting your vocabulary. If you enjoy reading lots of dialogue, you'll feel like you've got a bunch of friends tagging along with you. But most people go straight for nonfiction, which indeed is the key to being able to casually drop interest in knowledge in conversations. For example, just by reading this book, you can come off to anyone in conversation as someone who knows history. The key is to not be obnoxious about it. Crazy, how we evolved from chimpanzees, right? Well, actually, evolution is nonlinear, and several human-like species inhabited or simultaneously, none of which could even be remotely considered as chimpanzees. While this is considered polite by the standards of a YouTube comment section, in real life, saying, well, actually before proving someone wrong will make you instantly unlikable. So here's a trick. Just swap the well with something casual like I was reading the other day. And you're back on track immediately. Let's give this conversation a redo. Crazy, how we evolved from chimpanzees, right? It is crazy, right? I was reading the other day, and apparently humans and chimpanzees. I always thought we evolved from them, but I guess we just evolved side by side. Boom. You can be smart, humble, and still sound like someone who actually touches grass. The trick is to share what you know without making anyone feel dumb. That way, people actually learn from you, and they'll see you as smart and respectful. So, how do you find these books? Super easy. You don't need to read the same 5 books that everyone says are must-reads. Just think of a topic you want to learn about, like household chores. Then, search for books about household chores. You'll probably find a book that looks pretty cool in Amazon. If you happen to visit this website and search for the book title, you can read it on your device without spending a penny. I will leave the names of websites where you can read books for free in the comments section below. Now that you've got your book, you'll not only learn interesting tidbits to throw into conversations, but you'll also pick up tons of useful skills along the way. And don't forget, the thing you should know before learning a new skill. If you don't practice, your brain will think that skill is useless and forget about it. You only need 20% of the knowledge to master 80% of that skill. So, have you heard of something called the learning curve? Sounds like a fancy academic term, right? But really, it's just a graph showing how you get better at something over time. Honestly, it's not complicated at all. The cool thing about it is, with just a little bit of practice, you can improve a lot in the early stages. But you have to practice. Imagine this. No one can learn how to tie it just by watching someone else do it. You can't just sit there, watch someone tie a tie, and magically become an expert. You need to actually try tying it yourself while watching the expert. And the same goes for books. Reading books won't turn you into a genius overnight unless you give your brain a reason to remember the things in that book. For example, let's say you just read a chapter about cleaning your bedroom. Now, instead of sitting there thinking, wow, I just read a whole chapter on cleaning, I'm so smart. Get up and actually clean your bedroom. And hey, it doesn't even have to be your room. Just clean someone else's. Trust me, you'll never forget it. But let's say you can't practice right away. Maybe you're reading a book about cars and you see a diagram on how to jumpstart a dead car using a live one. Ideally, you finish reading and immediately go out to try it, right? But not everyone has two cars just lying around to experiment with. Don't worry, you can still practice by imagining it. Picture yourself in a situation where you need to know how to jumpstart a car. Put yourself in that moment, watch a video on it, and imagine the car is yours. Seriously, when you imagine the whole process, you're tricking your brain into thinking you've already used that information, and it will stick in your head. Meanwhile, the person who just looks at the diagram and tries to memorize it won't know what to do when it's time to actually jumpstart a car. That's how you get smarter. Use everything you learn, and if you can't practice right away, imagine yourself in the moment when you need it. Actually, that's how the whole school system works. From theory to practice, everything has to be applied. So, don't just read books, live with them. All right, here's the typical way we've all experienced learning, right? You study a bunch of information, and then, because it'll take you another 15 years to actually use it in real life, your teacher decides to create an imaginary situation where you'll need all that stuff. And of course, that's a test. You're probably thinking, wait, what does this test have to do with me? Well, that's how you get challenged. A test with all kinds of questions about what you just learned. And if you get the answers wrong, you fail. Or in Korea, you might go to jail. Just kidding, only if you cheat. And hey, when there's a test, your brain starts scrambling to recall everything you've learned because it just wants to avoid failure. The problem is, after the test ends, your brain goes, all right, the test's over. No need for this anymore. And boom, you forget everything. Just like that. So how do you learn better? Some people think that repeating things, practicing in intervals, or using mind maps will help them learn faster and score higher. But the real truth is, doing practice questions is the key to making the quickest progress. Why? Because practice questions simulate exactly the situation where you'll need to use what you've learned. For example, don't have any practice questions? Make some up yourself. Convince yourself that the stakes are extremely high. Imagine this. You're hanging off a cliff with just one hand, and someone is ready to pull you up. But only if you can list all the parts of a human cell. See what I mean? That's some serious pressure, right? But at least you'll remember it for a long time. Learning and turning information into something useful for your brain is all you need to get smarter. And that's exactly why textbooks are such a great tool for learning quickly. No distractions, no fluff, just pure information and a bunch of practice questions. And if you can't solve them, you'll have to flip to the appendix at the end of the book for help. Textbooks aren't for those who want to take the easy route, because they're not as exciting as watching a YouTube video. But if you want to challenge yourself, there's a website you might accidentally stumble upon, where you could accidentally download textbooks for any topic you want for free. But before you do that, don't forget to subscribe so I can keep the motivation going for the next video. And so you never miss one of my latest uploads.